The prevailing narrative is a calculated diversion. Media fixates on missile salvos and kinetic threats, pointing to U.S. air defense installations in Qatar as proof of a symmetric, state-on-state confrontation. This is a deliberate misreading of the strategic calculus. An adversary facing a terminal solvency crisis, like Iran, with its currency in free fall past 1.4 million per dollar, is mathematically incapable of sustaining a high-cost kinetic war. The math doesn't lie. The blueprint was proven in Ukraine. Systematized, low-cost attrition warfare using drones. But that is merely phase one. The next evolution of this doctrine does not target military assets. It targets the central nervous system of Western finance and logistics. The real vector is silent, and the objective is not destruction, but disconnection. According to analysts at CSIS and RUSI, the two primary strategic vulnerabilities are not military bases, but the deep-sea fiber optic cables that carry 97% of global data and trillions in daily financial transactions. The second is the low Earth orbit satellite constellation that governs GPS, logistics, and military communications. The cost to disrupt these systems is a rounding error compared to a single ballistic missile. The economic liability created is infinite. This is the protocol for creating a blind Leviathan. By severing the data arteries, an adversary transforms the world's dominant military economic power into a disoriented giant, powerful, yet deaf, dumb, and blind. It cannot project force, secure supply chains, or even clear a single financial transaction. It is an asymmetric protocol designed to force de-escalation by triggering a systemic liquidity crisis. The threat is not a bang, it is the silence that follows. A nation-state does not pivot to asymmetric warfare by choice. It is a mathematical function of an internal solvency crisis. When a state's currency fails and its ability to fund a conventional kinetic war evaporates, the leadership faces a zero-sum calculation. The social contract is void. The motive is not aggression. It is survival. According to CSIS analysis, a prolonged conventional war becomes a terminal domestic liability. For a regime like Russia's, it is an unsustainable drain on liquidity and political capital. This is the solvency trap. The state is mathematically forced to find a new model or face internal collapse. Weakness forces the pivot. The objective shifts from kinetic victory to creating an unacceptable economic liability for the adversary. Ukraine's evolution from improvised to systematized drone combat is the field-tested blueprint. Iran, with its currency in freefall, at 1.47 million per dollar, is executing the same protocol. This is not a coincidence, it is a forced response. This transforms economic desperation into strategic leverage. The kinetic cost to launch a wave of cheap systematized assets is negligible. The cost to defend against it, to establish new air defense operations cells like the one the U.S. activated in Qatar, is exponential. The weaker actor bleeds the stronger actor, not with armies, but on a balance sheet. This is the new vector for global conflict. The central equation of modern conflict is no longer a calculation of military mass. It is a calculation of economic liability. The Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, codifies this with a stark cost-exchange ratio. A single main battle tank, a kinetic asset valued at over $5 million, can be neutralized by a $500 first-person view drone. This is not a one-to-one fight. It is an asymmetric economic attack. For every $1 million spent on traditional armor, an adversary needs to spend only $100 to create a credible kill vector. This transforms warfare from a test of force to a war of attrition on the balance sheet. This radical cost imbalance enables what strategists call the democratization of violence. High-impact, precision lethality is no longer the exclusive domain of nation-states with trillion-dollar defense budgets. It has been decentralized, industrialized, and made available to any actor with a rudimentary supply chain. The war in Ukraine provides the blueprint. Drone warfare has evolved from improvisation into a core component of systematized combat. This isn't about rogue operators. It's about scalable, repeatable protocols for attriting a superior force's most expensive assets with the cheapest possible inputs. This blueprint becomes a mathematical certainty for a state facing a solvency crisis. An entity like Iran, with its currency in free fall, is not just incentivized, it is programmatically forced to adopt this model, when conventional military parity is impossible. The only rational strategy is to impose an unacceptable economic liability on the adversary. The objective is not to win on the battlefield, but to make the cost of defense unsustainable for the stronger power. Every $500 drone necessitates a high-cost defensive response, flipping the kinetic cost exchange in the weaker actor's favor and transforming economic desperation into strategic leverage. Systemic risk is no longer geographically contained. The regional instability flagged by security services in places like South Africa or even Canada is not the root cause. It is the symptom of a pre-positioned staging ground. These nations are designated proxy laboratories, or gray zones. Analysis from RUSI confirms these zones are selected for their weak central authority, providing plausible deniability for launching asymmetric attacks. An adversary facing a terminal solvency crisis, such as Iran's currency collapse to 1.47 million per dollar, is mathematically forced to export risk. The blueprint has already been proven. Ukraine's shift from improvised drones to a systematized combat model provides a low-cost, scalable attack vector. The objective is not kinetic victory. It is to leverage these proxy zones to create an unacceptable economic liability, forcing a superpower, like the U.S. hardening its air defenses in Qatar, into a de-escalation on the weaker actor's terms. The instability is the operational environment, not the event itself. The Nuclear Command Protocol is Launch on Warning. It is a Cold War relic, a mathematical protocol that dictates a retaliatory strike before the first enemy warhead impacts. This prevents a decapitation of command. According to CSIS, this doctrine is now the primary attack surface for adversaries facing a solvency crisis. A nation whose currency has collapsed, as documented in Iran, is systemically forced to adopt asymmetric escalation. The blueprint is proven. Ukraine's systematized use of cheap drones demonstrates how to achieve strategic outcomes at a near-zero kinetic cost. The new vector is a cyber attack that blinds the radar. This creates the fog of digital war. The commander is now forced into a zero-sum calculation. Is the signal loss a technical error, or is it the precursor to an annihilation strike? The protocol demands a launch out of fear. The objective for the weaker actor is not to win, but to exploit this protocol, creating an unacceptable economic liability that forces the superpower to de-escalate on the attacker's terms. An adversary's solvency crisis is a launch-on warning indicator for asymmetric economic warfare. Iran's currency has passed the threshold of mathematical desperation, as documented by the International Business Times UK. The strategic blueprint has already been field-tested. The systematized, low-cost drone protocols proven effective in Ukraine, confirmed by orphanline.org, are now the baseline for projecting force from a position of economic weakness. The objective is not kinetic victory. It is the creation of an unacceptable systemic liability. The calibration shot, therefore, will not be a missile strike against a military asset like the U.S. Air Defense Cell in Qatar. It will be an attribution-impossible shutdown of a critical economic node. Within the next 12 months, anticipate a coordinated electronic and physical attack on the port logistics and power grid of a major commercial shipping hub in the Persian Gulf. The event will manifest as a cascading systems failure, a port blackout inflicted by a swarm of deniable commercially derived drones. CSIS analysts note the primary purpose is to test the U.S. response protocol to a non-military, high-cost economic event. The math is simple. Inflict financial pain greater than the political will for a kinetic reprisal without a clear target. This is the vector.